And we start the 7 with our coverage in the Christopher Schurr trial. A judge declared a mistrial this morning when the jury was unable to reach a verdict. The former Grand Rapids police officer was accused of murder after he shot and killed Patrick Lyoya following a traffic stop 3 years ago. It all started this morning in court after more than 20 hours of deliberation. The jury told the judge it was hopelessly deadlocked.
That you were unable to reach a verdict. Who was the foreperson to raise your hand? Okay. And so first I wanted to verify that that's true, that you're unable to reach a verdict as a panel?
Correct.
Okay. And so what I'm going to do is declare a mistrial in this case.
In a virtual news conference following the news, Lyoya's family said they were in pain.
The image, how my son was killed, he came back again. We came here, we were fighting, and we get to the end. We thought that we were getting to the close of this case, and we're going to get the justice. I want to say that it hurt my family, my wife. We are bleeding, we are in pain.
He said the family would not give up on seeking justice for their son. Vin Johnson, the attorney representing the Lyoya family in a civil wrongful death lawsuit against Schurr, praised prosecutor Chris Becker for prosecuting the case and said the family supported a retrial. Becker said he was disappointed but not surprised that the jury could not reach a verdict.
What happened today is not what anybody was expecting or wanted. We're hoping for a verdict, and I think the family, I don't know if they've talked here, but they're extremely disappointed, as am I. This was something we were hoping to get a conclusion. We thought we'd put a good case forward. Obviously, the jury thought differently. They were hung.
He said he spoke with the jurors following the mistrial and knew how many fell on either side of the case. He says the questions that divided them were the ones laid out in court, the totality of the circumstances versus the moment of the shot was fired and the dangers posed by Schurr's taser during the struggle. Becker must now decide whether to try the case again in front of a new jury. As of today, he has yet to make a decision. On the other hand, defense attorney Matthew Borgula believes the case never should have been filed in the first place.
It was clear, based on the evidence, that there wasn't enough to establish a charge in this case. I think there was a lot of evidence at trial that was irrelevant and that shouldn't come in. And so if there is going to be another trial, we're going to likely seek rulings from appellate courts as to what evidence is put before the jury. In particular,
Borgula said the jury was, quote, overwhelmingly in favor of acquittal and there were holdouts on the other side. The city of Grand Rapids, the police department, and local pastors have reacted to the news of the mistrial as well, and you can read and watch their responses on woodtv.com. All right, we want to go out live now. This is in Kent County, outside the Kent County Courthouse tonight in downtown Grand Rapids. Demonstrators have been out there following the news of a mistrial. This march through the city started about 30 minutes ago. Adriana Doria is out there. She says it is kind of getting rowdy at times. That's why we're not taking her live at this time, but you can see a number of police officers out there with that crowd, but we'll have much more coming up tonight at 10 and 11, but those demonstrators and on both sides have been outside the courthouse all day for those every day during this trial. Well, she has been with us since day one of this trial, and she is back. Tracey Brame with Cooley Law has been bringing her expertise and analysis on this trial. Thank you for being here with us. What was your reaction after the jury, was deadlocked on Tuesday? Did you think that they would come back with a verdict today?
Well, I wasn't sure when they announced their deadlock on Tuesday, but when they went all day yesterday without a verdict, I thought that they might still be deadlocked.
So what do you think played a role in the jury making this decision? We just heard from prosecutor Chris Becker lay out a couple of things there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about this before, this contrast between, do we look at the totality of circumstances from the moment that Officer Schurr stopped Mr. Lyoya, or are we only focused on the struggle that they had for the taser when Officer Schurr was afraid for his life? And of course, the defense counsel thought the jury might have been confused by that, because if you start from the beginning of the stop, right, you might blame Officer Schurr for getting in that position in the first place, whereas if you focus on the struggle itself, you might understand where he was coming from. And so I think that's where the attorneys think that the jurors might have been stuck or disagreed.
You know, Chris Becker must now decide to try the case in front of a new jury. How difficult is it to retry a trial like this?
So it's tough, and if you believe the defense attorney, and who knows what the jurors said when they talked to them, but if there were several, jurors who were in favor of acquittal and a couple of holdouts, Prosecutor Becker has to look at the case that he brought, the evidence that was put before the jury, and the struggle that they had coming to a consensus. Defense attorney implied that they might seek some appellate rulings on some of the evidence if it goes to trial again, right? So he might end up with some different rulings and different evidence that comes in. So he has to weigh all of that, as well as the family's wishes, when deciding whether to, kind of go through this again.
Professor, how often do cases like this get retried again?
So it's not uncommon for them to get retried. Again, this was a very polarizing, I'd say, close case. And so to be retried at least once wouldn't be uncommon.
And what do you think a typical time frame that looks like for all of this to play out?
Well, the prosecutor said that he really wanted to take his time and to be deliberate and to reflect on what happened this week and to talk to the family. And I think he said, sometime in the next few weeks, that maybe by June. But again, he really wants to be intentional about it. So we'll see. Hopefully, in the next few weeks, we'll know.
We don't know, but as you heard just moments ago, the defense attorney said the jury was, quote, overwhelmingly in favor of acquittal. And there were holdouts on the other side. What does that mean for the prosecution and their case?
So if that's true, if there truly was an overwhelming, feeling that that the prosecution had not met its burden, then that's something that he'll consider a retrial. But the contrast to that, and again, we don't know for sure what the breakdown was, but even assuming that there were several in favor of acquittal, there were also jurors who felt strongly enough, right, that there should be some accountability on Officer Schurr's part, that they held out and couldn't reach consensus. And who knows what 12 people that you would get, in the box the next time. So.
And if this case is retried, what does that look like? Could it move to another county? Just given that this case has received so much attention, right? 3 years plus now, a lot of coverage.
Yeah, so potentially one of the parties could ask for a change of venue if they think that it would be difficult to find unbiased jurors here in the city. But as the prosecutor said, they may very well just go through the voir dire process again to question the jurors, because you may find people who have not really been paying attention or feel as though they can be impartial nevertheless. But in certain cases, typically in cases with a lot of publicity, sometimes a change of venue will be.
And, let's talk about the jury now, because, both prosecution and the defense, they praise the jury for taking this seriously, taking notes, asking good questions. Just expand more about that and what you noticed with the jury.
I was very impressed with the jury. I think the prosecutor mentioned that he had never seen a jury take as many notes or ask as many questions. They really seemed to be trying to get it right. And again, in the end, I think their final note to the judge said, we're deadlocked, and if you send us back, just know we listen to your instructions, and we don't want to vote against our conscience. They were really, trying to figure it all out, but stay within their own values and their own conscience. And it sounds like, both sides appreciated their efforts and what they did, and they just couldn't come to a decision.
Yeah, and the judge accepted that. She did not send them back to the jury room today. All right, thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate your analysis during this trial.
Absolutely, thank you.
And we've been covering it over the course of 2 weeks, and it stirred up a lot of emotions for some people. And the city of Grand Rapids is offering mental health support today and tomorrow at the Wisdom Center, which is on Alger Street in Grand Rapids. And they'll have therapists available until 8 tonight, and again tomorrow starting at 3 in the afternoon. It is free for anyone who is in need. And to catch up or take another look at all the reaction from today's coverage of the mistrial and the Schurr trial, you can go over to woodtv.com and on Wood TV Plus.